The Club World Cup pulled back the curtain on the real future of Real Madrid. What we saw wasn't just a tournament, it was a glimpse into what this team is becoming, either a side destined to make history or one that could fall apart chasing greatness. In just 5 matches, Xabi Alonso deployed 3 entirely different formations, a level of tactical experimentation that Carlo Ancelotti rarely dared to attempt across multiple seasons. Each shift in setup was Alonso's answer to a weakness he spotted in the game before. But while these tweaks fixed some issues, they also opened new cracks. And yet, within all the chaos, there were glimmers of something genius, a vision that suggests Madrid could evolve into something terrifying. So what exactly did Alonso uncover about his squad? And is this tactical unpredictability Madrid's secret weapon or a ticking time bomb? Let's start at the core. Despite changing formations, Alonso's build-up play always circles back to one familiar pattern, a back 3. No matter how the team lines up on paper, that 3-man base forms the foundation of everything. And at the center of it all, Thibaut Courtois. Under Ancelotti, Courtois was the classic shot stopper, rarely stepping far beyond his box. But that's no longer enough. Under Alonso, the Belgian must evolve. His ball-playing skills have quietly improved over the years, but now he's expected to be more than a goalkeeper. When Madrid build from deep, even if they start with a back 4, Courtois steps up between the center backs to complete that essential back 3. Why? Simple. Numbers. By involving Courtois, Alonso avoids pulling a midfielder or fullback deep, allowing that extra player to stay higher and threaten the opponent. It's a clever mathematical solution to gain numerical superiority without compromising attacking potential. But as the team advances, Courtois naturally can't maintain that high position, and this is where the real magic begins. Football at its core is a never-ending chess match. Every tactical setup invites a counter-strategy. What worked one week becomes predictable the next. That's why Alonso's true strength lies not in rigid formations, but in fluid tactical principles that adapt in real time. Take Madrid's opening game against Al-Hilal. Regardless of the official lineup, the midfield rarely looked like a standard trio. Instead, Trent Alexander-Arnold would invert into the midfield, joining either in a deep zone or slightly more advanced. This would create a 4-man midfield, giving Madrid a critical advantage in central zones. And even when Alonso started with a diamond midfield, meaning no inversion from full-backs, the same numerical setup appeared. That's no coincidence. This reveals a deeper truth about Alonso's philosophy. Formations are just the surface. His real language is in principles, repeated patterns and ideas that play out no matter the structure. One of his favorites? The central overload, stacking the middle of the pitch with 4 players against an opposition's typical 3. This gives Madrid the chance to break lines and drive directly at goal. But smart opponents have started to catch on. That's exactly why Alonso insists on the back 3 during build-up play. With 3 at the back, even if the opposition presses with 2, there's always a spare man. It breaks the press and keeps control. However, how that back 3 functions depends entirely on who's in it. Personnel changes everything, from passing angles to defensive transitions. In football, who is involved in a tactical role matters just as much as how that role is performed. Take that same match against Al-Hilal, where Trent Alexander-Arnold tucked into midfield. Fran Garcia was also asked to invert, slotting in as the left-sided center-back in possession. He fulfilled the role decently, playing safe and maintaining structure. But decent wasn't enough. Against compact, narrow defenses, Madrid needed more than tidy ball circulation. They needed incisive, progressive passing that could dismantle defensive blocks. And that's where Fran Garcia fell short. His strengths lie in pace and overlapping runs, not in dissecting teams with line-breaking passes. The issue with Fran Garcia became even more glaring in the diamond or back 5 systems. In these setups, he wasn't tasked with inverting. Instead, he was pushed wide, often completely isolated. And this caused huge problems as opponents immediately recognized the opportunity. This was Madrid's weak point. As soon as Garcia touched the ball, the press intensified. He became the pressing trigger, the player opponents waited for to pounce. Under that pressure, he looked uncomfortable, often barely escaping tight situations, and frequently opting for the safest pass backward. His lack of close support and composure made it a liability. This tournament made it clear, Alonso's Real Madrid is in constant evolution. Identify the weak links, adjust, and reconfigure. With opponents exploiting Garcia, Alonso had to rethink how to support him better. One of his first changes was subtle, yet brilliant, tweaking Vinicius Jr.'s role. Earlier in the tournament, Vinicius played more centrally when Garcia received the ball. But as the matches went on, Alonso instructed Vinicius to drift wider whenever Garcia had possession. This subtle movement pinned the opposing fullback deeper, buying Garcia more time and space. Most teams were reluctant to pull a central midfielder wide due to Madrid's overloads in the middle, so the fullback was forced to deal with both Vinicius and Garcia, often unsuccessfully. Even if pressure came, Garcia now had a simple pass up the line. This worked well when Garcia was stationed high and wide. But when he was deeper, playing in a back three, Madrid needed more. That's where Alonso's next shift came in, bringing in Huijsen as a dedicated left center back. When Madrid built out in a back four and inverted, Huijsen naturally moved into the middle. But by switching to a true back three from the start, Alonso allowed Huijsen to operate where he's most comfortable, on the left side of the back line. From that deeper role, Huijsen offered exactly what Garcia lacked: calmness on the ball, vision, and line-breaking passes that kick-started Madrid's midfield dominance. But despite solving one issue, the challenge of narrow defensive blocks remained. So Alonso evolved things even further. Huijsen didn't stay static in the back three. In possession, he often shifted into advanced left-back zones, pseudo-fullback territory, carrying the ball up. This adjustment freed Fran Garcia from deep build-up responsibilities. Instead of being pinned in defensive areas where he struggled, he could now operate higher up the pitch, where his explosive pace and attacking runs became weapons. With Vinicius dragging defenders into half spaces, Garcia found freedom to overlap and exploit the gaps, a role perfectly tailored to his strengths. In short, the fixed back three unlocked Garcia's potential, but only when Madrid used a back three. The dilemma came when they had to revert to the diamond, a formation that naturally compresses width. To solve this, Alonso had to rethink the dynamics again, this time focusing on Mendy and Valverde have their strengths. They're not the most creative passers from deep. The result? Bellingham and Trent, operating between the lines, weren't seeing enough of the ball. To fix but with the 4-3-3 gone, and the diamond or back five systems requiring fullbacks to stretch wide, Trent was no longer inverting into midfield, and certainly not joining the back line. So how could Madrid still build with three at the back in these narrower shapes? Enter Arda Güler in a reinvented role. Traditionally an advanced playmaker or wide midfielder, Güler had to adapt. In the diamond, Madrid struggled to get clean progression into the dual attacking midfielders. With Trent pinned wide and Bellingham staying high, there was a gap in creativity from deeper zones. Alonso's solution was to allow Güler to drop deeper and become a third man in build-up, not as a defender, but as a deep-lying connector. This helped Madrid recreate the back three feel in build-up, even when not using a true back three shape on paper. And it gave them another gifted passer to help link the play into those dangerous half-space areas. Where previously his passing focused on threading balls through to attackers, he now leverages that same skill to break defensive lines. Put simply, he's assuming the role once held by Toni Kroos. But it gets even more intriguing. Güler has adopted another Kroos-like trait by positioning himself even deeper during build-up phases, often drifting toward the left side of the defensive line. So, when Madrid deploy their diamond formation, Güler acts as the third man in the initial build-up, maintaining the advantageous 3 versus 2 situation. The outright wing. As previously mentioned, the team's narrow setup forces Trent Alexander-Arnold to hold the width on that side. Yet, one of Madrid's core attacking concepts is based on creating overloads on one flank to isolate defenders and then switching play to exploit space on the opposite side. This approach showed promise in Madrid's opening game, where a 4-3-3 formation morphed into a midfield diamond with Trent inverting inside. When a switch of play came through, Rodrigo, a natural winger, found space for a dangerous one-on-one. However, Alonso's tactical shift introduced an unexpected issue. When Madrid switched to a diamond or a back five, Trent no longer had a winger ahead of him. As a result, when the team performed their characteristic play switches, Trent was the one receiving the ball in wide areas instead of a natural dribbler like Rodrigo. This shift fundamentally altered Madrid's attacking flow. While Trent is excellent on the ball, his strengths do not lie in dribbling or explosive pace in 1v1s. If he's not crossing immediately upon receiving the ball, he's often not being used to his fullest potential. This isolation of Trent created further difficulties during build-up play on the right flank. Two scenarios have been evident. Unlike the left side, where Vinicius Jr. comfortably occupies wide areas, Madrid's main right-sided forward in the tournament, Gonzalo Garcia, preferred a central position. This left Trent isolated, and even the best passers need teammates to connect with. Unfortunately, during the tournament, Trent often found himself without such support. Scenario 2 demonstrated why Los Blancos could be far more threatening. Bellingham and Valverde hold the key to transforming the dynamic. The problem wasn't just with Mbappe or Vinicius. This meant the entire pressing system suffered a total breakdown, far beyond individual effort. And it happened repeatedly, across formations and personnel. Combine that with personnel mismatches, and you get a perfect storm of defensive frailty. Playing Güler so deep has been a revelation in possession, with the young Turk channeling his inner Kroos as Madrid's deep-lying playmaker. But there's one crucial difference. Kroos had Casemiro at his peak alongside him, a midfielder with the engine and defensive grit to cover huge ground, allowing Kroos to focus on distribution. Güler doesn't have that luxury yet. As he settles into his new role, defensive vulnerabilities have surfaced. Opponents often get between the lines in dangerous spots, exploiting spaces Güler should be more aware of. Add to that a backline sometimes hesitant to support the press, and the problems compound. PSG exposed both structural and personnel flaws perfectly. Remember how Madrid's press looked strong against Dortmund's midfield three? PSG also played a midfield three, but dominated. Their solutions were surgical. PSG built from a back three against Madrid's front two, creating an immediate advantage. The key, Nuno Mendes started as a left center back. With no pressure on him and Madrid's narrow shape, Mendes easily found Calachulia one-on-one against Madrid's right back, exploiting that mismatch. PSG went further by manipulating Güler. When Güler dropped deep to receive, he dragged Güler higher up the pitch. Then Mendes rotated to become the free man between the lines, gaining more space closer to Madrid's defense to cause havoc. Meanwhile, PSG's fluid front three constantly dropped into midfield zones, creating overloads Madrid struggled to handle. Calachulia and his partners drifted into midfield, leaving Madrid's defenders caught between pressing too deep or defending isolated. This pattern repeated against nearly every opponent, except when Madrid fielded a dedicated defensive midfielder like Tchouaméni. Against Juventus, initially with Tchouaméni in the back five, Yildiz ran rampant. But when Alonso shifted Tchouaméni into midfield in the second half, Madrid's defense stabilized, perhaps hinting at a future solution. The uncomfortable truth? Madrid's pressing system is poorly coordinated and systematically exploited by savvy opponents. Madrid's attack is practically limitless, but their defense remains a ticking time bomb. The key is for Alonso to fix this, fast.